Sign the deal, set in motion. Smaller fish, so huge the ocean. See the cycle I've waited for. It ain't like that anymore. This is the Community Solutions Podcast coming at you. It is 2018, and I am here, Jason Bradley. With me, as always, Andrew Richter.
Yes, and by the way, you know, I'm 1 year older now.
Are you?
Yes, 41.
Wow. Just
now.
since last time we talked, you aged a whole year.
I aged an entire year. The calendar flips. You know, having a birthday in early January, I mean, everybody's tapped out with Christmas money. So,
yeah.
You know, you're getting, if you got 2 lumps of coal for Christmas, you're getting half of one for your birthday.
Right.
And, you know, it's just a weird time to have a birthday. It's always, I was born on one of the coldest days. You can ask my father. One of the coldest days in the history of Minnesota. The day after the last time the Vikings were in the Super Bowl. So, wow. I, of course, have never seen that. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. You know, my birthday...
The Super Bowl will be here no matter what, though, right?
Right. Yeah, it'll be here no matter what. My birthday is... You know, I did okay, you know, as a kid, being in early November. It's still somewhat close to Christmas, but it was always during the opening week of deer season. And so...
Election season, too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your birthday's probably been on Election Day a few times.
Yeah, plenty. So I've got some good birthday gifts and some not so good birthday gifts.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all?
Yes. Yes, we have. Oh.
Okay, now, once again, the opening line you said there. Now, what's that from now?
That's a song, It Ain't Like That, from Alice in Chains. I took from last week's discussion. You wanted a band that you liked. So
okay. Whoops. Well, maybe, you know, if you don't sing it, I don't know it. It's like I need a play along. I need music sheets. I do like Alice in Chains, though.
Well, there you go.
The probably, like I said last time, them or Eric Clapton are the two greatest. I used to watch Unplugged back in the 90s. That's the two best ones I ever saw.
Well, Nirvana, I think. Those three. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as big a fan of their music, but they did put on a good show.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I'll agree with that as the top 3. No problem there.
Well, good. Oh, so yeah, I tried to pick something that you like this week, so it still didn't help. But that's okay.
Wasn't familiar. But maybe you got to sing it next time. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, maybe I'll stick my finger in my ear and go.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you sang "Back in the Saddle" again, I'd know what you were talking about. So I mean, it's just.
Oh my goodness!
I feel stupid that you said Alice in Chains, and then I didn't.
When were you born again? Like 1946?
Well. Give or take 50 years.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just checking.
You got to understand something now. I grew up on, 50s and 60s country here. I mean, that's what my parents played. My dad had
Campbell, lots of
Merle Haggard was my dad's favorite. Yeah. He had one CD or tape, or I don't remember what it was, in his old truck, and he just played that. My mom's favorite was Willie Nelson. So, I mean, the Highwaymen, they liked Waylon. They liked George Jones. My grandpa was a big George Jones fan, so I grew up on Hee Haw and that kind of. Now,
me too.
Me personally, okay, I am of the MTV Generation X, I guess is what you'd call it.
Yes.
I was a big fan of 80s pop, and part of, I wasn't a big grunge fan, largely because that kind of replaced the music I liked, and I quite frankly like very little today. Very little music today.
You just got to take the time to search for it. It's out there.
Yeah.
And that's the nice thing about the internet. I mean, it's all out there. And there are a lot of bands today that have really heavy 80s influences. And I think you dig them, but it's just finding them.
Technology has cut down the barrier to a
has.
lot of that. And same thing with doing podcasts.
Exactly.
These didn't exist 20 years ago.
No, I'm a fan. I mean, what radio station would have let us on?
Well, judging by our numbers here lately, and I know you'll get into where you can find us later, and if you're listening, you've already found us. But I mean, where we can be found, you can go back and listen to our. We have a whole year of shows on there.
Yeah,
and technology is you think. I'm so far behind the times when it comes to it, but you think nothing new can come out. What more can we do?
Right.
And we've got phones. I mean, as a kid, I watched the Jetsons, and I'm like, are we going to have phones like that? someday where they talk. We had them 15 years ago.
Right.
And so it's kind of it is amazing it's an interesting time to be alive, I think.
It is, and you talk about our technology and the phones we have. We used to work at these big computers and then got to laptops, and people still use those things, when you need heavy computing. But so much of business today is just done on your phone. You have that phone and you're like glued to it because it's your email, it's texting with business,
social media,
marketing. It's all there. If you don't have that in this day and age, you lose out. You lose out on opportunity. You lose out on the ability to learn. I mean, you've got libraries of information in that phone.
It has become. I am one who defines the word need differently than other people.
Yeah,
it is damn close to a need.
I would say it is. If you're an independent businessman
you
or
can't
woman,
live without it.
You can't live without it. No, you're tied to that thing. I mean, that is your lifeline to your customers, to your prospective customers, to your business partners, to, all the information on how to be a better marketer, how to be, a better podcaster, how to create a podcast. All of that stuff you find out,
it's at the palm of your hands.
But
everything's at the palm of your hands.
It's all connected.
You just have to go find it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all there. It is unbelievable. I just wonder what the world will be like when you and I are in our rocking chairs and we're 75 years old. I mean, probably still doing podcasts.
Yeah,
still trying to get rid of the Met Council. I mean, it's I wonder where we'll be. I mean, you think about things like Skype, GoToMeeting. How much that's reduced costs for businesses and things. You don't have to fly around the country to meet somebody, and I mean, just how much easier it is to access. The world's so small today. I'm not a big fan of globalism. I'm not a big fan of things like that.
Right.
But we can't stop it back either. We can't turn it back to the 1920s. Much as I'd love to bring Calvin Coolidge back, it's just not going to happen. It just is.
Right. Well, and globalism in us being connected is not a bad thing. What is a bad thing is when we lose sovereignty and we lose freedom because we've got to be just like whatever country it is. Or you take a country that is less fortunate and, we got to bring America down to their level. We'll talk about stuff like that later with equity.
Yeah, but I mean, it is true. There's two schools of thought. Do you follow women's college basketball at all? UConn has been the best team for 25 years or something. Well, their coach, I wish I could, Gino something. You can Google it or something at home. Gino Arrieta or something, I think is his name.
It's not Gino Vanelli, is
it? No. But they've won something like 12 of the last 20 women's college basketball championships. Tennessee was the best team before that. Pat Summitt was their coach for a long time. And he said something once, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was asked if their dominance was good or bad for the game. And he gave an interesting answer. He said, well, if you think it's bad, the way to fix it is to not make us worse. Mm-hmm. It's to make everybody else better.
Right. I agree with that.
And then there's the other school of thought, which is to take from people who, the way to beat the Yankees is not to go take from them. It's to make all the other teams have the same or close to the same ability as they have, as far as, it's different on the pro level.
Right.
So that is kind of a microcosm of what the economy is like. There's one school of thought that if you're fortunate, and I always hate using that term because I always think to a certain degree, you make your own luck. To a certain degree, a lot of people who are successes have been failures. A lot of people who are successes risked everything they had to get it.
Exactly.
I always reminded of the scene in Cocktail where Tom Cruise and the lady from Adventures in Babysitting, I can't think of her name, but they.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm an 80s movies guy, of course, not just movies, but music. They're sitting around at a table, and they're like, we're surrounded by millionaires, the person who made these toothpicks and napkins and forks and tables. And it's an interesting way to look at how these companies and these people who are villainized have made our lives so much easier. We use their products every single day, and we hate them at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's part of the, we
all shop at Walmart, but we hate. I mean, it's just
that was part of that whole deal with Occupy Wall Street. It's like, I'm going to sit here and text on my iPhone how much I hate corporations. It's
that's right. I'm going to go to a corporate place to buy my clothes. I'm going to go somewhere to buy my groceries. But at the same time, I hate these people who make my life so easy. Flip on a light switch. I've always said this, and we'll get into our subject here in a second, but this is an interesting discussion, that innovation didn't happen in America by accident.
No, it didn't.
It's not an accident that we invented the light bulb and the, bubble, you name it, car. It didn't happen by the grace of God necessarily. It happened because of freedom. It happened because of, like you think of something today like green energy is probably my biggest pet peeve when I think of things.
Right.
If the government got out of the way and stopped subsidizing things, stopped preaching to us, green energy would probably be here and probably be much cheaper and more efficient than we could ever imagine it.
Absolutely. I would be a huge proponent of it if it saved us money and was more efficient. I just would.
But people would anyway, because the free market, it's what happened when we went from coal to oil. It's
right.
what happened, it's what happened when we went from horses to cars. Yeah. Same thing happened. The free market worked. The great story of Henry Ford, which I've told before. I'm making a product that my workers can't buy.
Right.
How the hell do we fix this? Then the assembly line was created. Mr. Ford put the money right back into the company, and people worked for Ford for 40 years.
Yeah.
And of course he's long since dead, died in like the 40s maybe or 50s. But I mean, it's a great example of what can happen if you Henry Ford didn't run to the government with his hands out and say, "Oh, I need free money to fix something."
Right.
So, take that, you green energy people. Take that as a lesson when you're talking about your subsidized solar panel, which probably isn't on your house anyway.
Probably not in some cases. That's true. But, as technology, the longer we go, the quicker technology doubles itself, the shorter time frame. And so, I mean, it's an interesting discussion because like we're talking about with our phones, eventually things like GoToMeeting, I mean, we're going to have contacts in our eyes that allow us to do the whole alternate reality or altered reality, virtual reality thing. And,
well, Keith Ellison must have those already. He's already in an alternate universe.
Well, augmented reality is that's the term I was looking for, but yeah, altered reality is something else. I
think there's glasses for that now, but not contacts.
They have those big old goggles.
I was watching Days of Our Lives one time, and they had virtual reality with glasses.
That lets me know that you watched it sometime in the recent past.
No.
I'll
say one more thing. I'll say one thing on it. When I went to North Hennepin Community College, so this is like 96 to 98, I actually scheduled my classes around Days of Our Lives. So I could watch Days of Our Lives. I would watch it in the Student Center every day from noon to 1.
You don't know my music. You watch Days of Our Lives. I don't know you. We've been working together for almost 10 years, and I don't know you. Who are you?
I don't know. I just showed up here. No rhyme or reason.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
Is that a nice segue into our subject matter here, which we should maybe get to?
Yeah. And today's song, I chose the lyrics because of Sign the Deal, Set in Motion.
Oh, boy, that just sounds bad.
It sounds bad, and it is bad when you're talking about the Met Council. And today, that's what we're going to discuss. We've told you plenty about what they're doing now. We're going to give you a little bit of history on the Met Council, how they started, and There's a whole backstory to that we're going to get into. Also, we're going to get into the accumulation of power over time. I think you'll be surprised at the people responsible for the Met Council.
Or maybe you won't be.
Maybe you won't be, yeah.
I know I was a little bit, but I wasn't shocked.
Yeah, well, it's... Why don't we go way back? Let's go back and talk about what started this whole phenomenon, because the Met Council, although it's unique, it's not one of a kind.
No, not even close.
And we'll make the distinction later, because we've talked about MATO and all these regional development organizations. We'll get to the distinction in that a little later, but we're going to focus today mostly on the Met Council.
Right, and regional planning authorities, or whatever you want to call them, were not new with the Met Council in 1967. In fact, they existed going back to the New Deal, especially in big cities like New York. Chicago had them. California wasn't big enough at the time.
Right.
But you've all heard the story. I mean, if you're a baseball fan, you've heard the story of Robert Moses, who was probably the most powerful man in New York for about a 30-year stretch. He was actually the head of 12 agencies, which would never be allowed today. But he was, but there's some credit him with inventing the suburb. I think that's exaggerating. I think Moses, you needed a bridge to get from the Bronx to Levittown.
Yeah. Moses
built the bridge. It was that kind of thing. And it's where terms like, urban sprawl, things like that, terms like that first started popping up. And it was the legislature, or in New York, I think it's called the Assembly, that granted these local government units this power. But Mr. Moses was more powerful than any governor. Think of him like J. Edgar Hoover, federally. Hoover had more power than the president had for a long, long time.
Yes.
I mean, running one agency where he was a lifetime appointment, he might as well have been a dictator. And Moses was like that a lot. If you're a baseball fan, he's a big reason why the Brooklyn Dodgers moved to Los Angeles. The owner of the Dodgers, a man named Walter O'Malley, wanted to build a new stadium in Brooklyn. Moses would not allow the stadium to be built. He had the power to block it. He wanted it built in Queens, which is where Shea Stadium ended up.
Right.
I think that opened in 1965 for the Mets. So it was part of why they moved. He is probably more responsible than any human being for my beloved Dodgers to be sitting out in Los Angeles. They belong in New York. Sorry. I don't really care for New York or California anymore. But as a baseball buff, the Dodgers to me, even though it's been a long, long time, 1957 or 58, their first year in L.A. So regional planning authorities were nothing new. It was, however, the 60s, and grew a little bit out of the, or this became the excuse, I don't know how you want to put it, for the interstate highway system, which got really big in the 50s. A planning process, I don't want to say wasn't in place, but there became this movement to create separate, called Metropolitan Planning Organizations, MPO, and their ability to receive federal money really began in 1962 with the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1962. Now, Federal Aid and Highway Acts happen all the time. I mean, it happens today with earmarks, with things like that. It's not really unique.
Right.
But this act allowed this creation. To my knowledge, it did not require it. It might be a distinction without a difference. But in reading, and I haven't finished all my research on this. Again, if somebody knows, they can email the show. You can complain to us later. But the actual requirement, from what I see, came in 1965 from the Bureau of Public Roads. that these planning agencies would carry out this process based on the 3 C's: continuing, comprehensive, and cooperative planning. Boy, doesn't that sound great?
Yes, that sounds great.
Yeah, and all urban areas of 50,000 or more were encouraged. I think the Act of 1962 encouraged these things.
It says here it required the formation of an MPO for any urbanized area with a population greater than 50,000.
So 1962.
Yes.
Okay, you must have a better website than me.
I don't know.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Yeah. It's only words. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But, I mean, these things got strengthened. The Housing and Urban Development Act of 1965 added housing to comprehensive planning, largely through grant money from HUD. There had been other housing acts, particularly the one of 1954, although to my knowledge they did not send money to unelected bodies. They did send them to state legislatures and things like that.
Huh.
So here in Minnesota, though, a different reason was used to create what we know as the Metropolitan Council.
Ooh.
Or was it an excuse?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's more of an excuse. When government wants power, it will find any excuse necessary to get that power.
Boy, ain't that the truth.
Yes. Yes, it is. And it doesn't matter which group is looking for the power. They find the excuse, and there you are.
Now, if you believe the Met Council's website, everyone was encouraging the Met Council to be created, weren't they?
Yeah. I think they were picketing in the streets because we need somebody to manage all of this for us because we're just not smart enough.
So basically, here's their. By the way, I should say, the last time Minnesota had a Republican governor, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate,
we were red. We were a red state.
Well,
we were a red state. They made it was so conservative that you.
Well, I mean, red state. We voted for Lyndon Johnson. The year was 1966 that they got elected.
Yes.
It lasted 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder why. What was created in 1967?
Lyndon Johnson's presidency.
Well, it wasn't created. It was still there.
No.
It was our friends at the Met Council. Now, the
Yes,
region, according to the Met Council, faced major challenges. Inadequately treated wastewater. A failing privately owned bus company.
Let me just say,
Yeah.
a failing privately owned bus company. So they replaced it with a failing publicly held bus company that only needs, if it weren't for the taxpayer money that it siphons away, it could never support itself.
Oh, it wouldn't even.
Okay.
It couldn't put gas in a bus.
Just wanted to check on that. That the state of things was so much better now.
Yes, they have an unlimited credit card now.
Yeah. Okay.
Development on sensitive natural areas. Interesting.
Like people who are kind of edgy or
could be.
These people are sensitive. We got to be careful how we develop out here.
They're naturally sensitive. And fiscal disparities that left some communities unable to provide essential services and intensified competition for development. That sentence means nothing to me. I can't interpret that. But I mean, inadequately treated wastewater suddenly became a regional. Okay, now think about this for a second. Yeah. A regional issue. Treating wastewater.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound believable? I mean, first off, there are solutions to this. How many cities have capped wells? And I mean, I mean, there are private solutions to both water and wastewater.
Yes.
So, And sewer systems were already in place in many places in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
They weren't out in Lakeville or out, they weren't in some places, but
I don't think
they would have been.
They weren't running into the neighborhood lake either. I mean, that's what they want to make you believe. We need a solution to this. I mean,
right, but isn't dirty water, evil water, acid rain a great scare tactic? I mean, this is right around the time that the EPA was created, the Clean Energy and Clean Water Acts, which might have been a few years. They might have been under Nixon.
Yeah, I think they were.
So, I mean, right around this time, you're kind of getting a water scare everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But, I mean, the Metropolitan Council is unique. And by the way, that isn't necessarily good. And this I found interesting. I found very interesting.
Yes.
Because I did not know this, Jay, that the structure of the Met Council, which has 17 members, 16 of which represent a district. Quick, name your rep.
Adam Dwinick.
He's not there anymore.
Oh.
But,
Okay.
He quit as the chair.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that.
He quit last year.
didn't even know that.
I think he quit right after the legislative session. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
He's been gone for a while.
That he was my rep.
Well, he's at large.
So he represents. It's a trick question. Nobody represents you because you don't get to vote for the Met Council.
Okay, but I guess that's true. Yeah.
Nobody represents you on the Met Council. It's a trick question.
All right, you got it.
Okay, seriously, answer my question.
But
yeah.
they are subject to Senate confirmation. Which I did not know. I have never seen that before. I mean, are these people passed? Where are the hearings that these folks are submitted to?
I don't know.
Can we YouTube Adam Dunnick's hearing? I mean, where was the coverage of that? Where was what was the vote? I mean, I get that elections have consequences.
Yeah.
And I am okay with, unlike some people, some partisans, hyper partisans. If a president wins an election, I believe he has or she has the right to appoint their cabinet.
Yes.
The only reason to vote against somebody is corruption, something like that. Elections have consequences.
Yes, they do.
Supreme Court's a little different. That's a lifetime appointment.
Yeah.
But I consider the Met Council. I consider that something different. That's not the governor winning and get to appoint his commissioner or hers.
It's not an advisor.
Right. It is they are a separate body. Mark Dayton does not control the Met Council.
No.
Tim Pawlenty didn't. Jesse Ventura didn't. Arnie Carlson didn't.
I would argue the legislature doesn't control them either.
I would say nobody does. It's kind of like the Supreme Court. You can't tell them what to do. Unless you pass legislation. Now, you can't do this with the Supreme Court because it's a co-equal branch of government.
Right.
But you have to appoint people who will interpret the law, not make it. But in this case, unless you take their authority away, like if I had Adam Dunnick sitting there, I'd be quizzing him to death on what he thinks his power is and on what he plans to do. He's not going to get away with a Ruth Bader Ginsburg answer.
No.
So, I mean, where is the... I mean, here's the thing. If the governor is going to appoint somebody, the legislature is going to okay them, where is the accountability lie then?
There is no accountability. I mean, other than I suppose the governor can replace you.
The governor and the legislature have given their authority away.
Yeah.
That's what's really happened.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think somebody can be replaced on the Met Council. The governor can say, I no longer need your services, and you could go through the whole appointment process again.
Probably. I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm not sure you can just fire anybody.
Huh.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's like the cabinet where you serve at the pleasure of the president. President Trump, if he wants to, could fire his entire cabinet tonight and hire whatever 15 new people or whatever it is. But there's a lot of departments.
Yes.
The Governor Dayton could fire the MnDOT commissioner. He could fire the commissioner of education. He can do that. I'm not sure he can do that with the Met Council. That's something, maybe some homework for us. I'm not sure he can do that. So
I don't know.
Maybe you can Google it while we're chatting here, since you've got the laptop open.
See.
So they're a entity on its own. So where is the tough questioning? Where is the what do you think I would say, what do you think your powers are? What happens if you have a city that does not want your stupid transit or your urban renewal or your high density housing? Do you think you can ramrod it down their throat? I'm curious to hear his answer. I mean, we all know he's going to give a lawyer's response.
Right.
He's not going to directly answer, but it's fascinating because I didn't know that they were subject to Senate confirmation. I have never seen a hearing appointing these folks. I've never heard of somebody in the Met Council being fired.
Yeah.
I know Peter Bell a little bit. He was the Met Council chair under Governor Pawlenty. I think he served all 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I do know him a little bit personally. But I don't know who quit or was let go or what would be, and here's the other thing I would bring up. If the Met Council's exercising the power that the legislature gave them, is that grounds for firing somebody? Hey, you said I can, I get comprehensive plans and I can make them conform to regional planning.
Yeah.
Is that grounds for dismissal? I mean, in politics, it's different, but, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And it doesn't really appear that there are too many answers to that handy. So can they be fired? I couldn't tell you. There's nothing that I see. Like, there's no stories that it's happened before that I can find. So,
well, why would you quit, though? I mean, why would anybody resign? You got the easiest job. Adam Dunnick's nothing but I don't know what qualifies him to be on the Met Council. He ran 527 groups for the DFL.
Yeah.
And it was a political reward.
Right. Well, I would just like to say going forward that whoever wins the governorship, I am open to lead the Met Council.
Now, remember when we had Jeff Johnson on, I said, I am very willing to accept an appointment to one of these.
And I followed up.
I didn't know I had to have Senate confirmation. That might be a problem. You imagine me sitting up there getting quizzed by I hate everything that there's there.
I'm not going to do a thing.
Yeah.
You appoint me, and I'm just not going to do anything. I'll get some crosswords done.
If he would have to appoint me as a recess, like John Bolton.
Right.
I'd have to be that to get on there. So, I mean, maybe I'd have to withdraw that offer.
I don't know. I'd go through the Senate process just to see if I could get on. I would do you right. If you don't like the Met Council, I would be the perfect person to lead it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think now you and I can serve different districts, and I could serve St. Paul or Lakeville, or what does it matter? I mean, does the district person have to live where they are?
Good question. You could have an at-large spot, or I don't know.
I have no idea, but I think if I could make an appeal to some of our friends running for governor, Keith Downey and Matt Dean and Jeff Johnson. No, I'm not going to get in the race. If I can make an appeal to put me on me and you on the short list. You know what I would really like? Actually, I want to take that back. You know what I'd really like?
Yeah.
I'd like to be the commissioner of MnDOT. That's what I'd like to be. Because I would spend my first, oh boy, I want to say day, but it might be a little longer than that, reversing damn near everything MnDOT said or done in the past 20 years. Because MnDOT has come out, I don't know how many people know this, but when 610 got completed, which if you're up here in the North Metro, you know 610 pretty well. They have declared that we are now built. We're not building any more roads or expanding here in the Twin Cities.
Huh.
And I'd like to know who gives MnDOT the authority to make that policy.
If I'm a mayor,
they are public servants. Yeah. They don't get to do things like that.
No.
And so, again, where is the overs? The first thing I do is I'd say, whatever statement that was, it is. I'm inaugurated at 12:01. 12:02, I retract that statement. That's my first executive order as the commissioner of MnDOT. How do you
likewise,
like that?
if I was elected mayor of a city, I think my first action would be to try to build a publicly funded road.
You mean a backage road? Would you like a backage road?
I don't know. I'd have to find a place where I wasn't disrupting anybody. I don't believe in eminent domain, really. But
well, you'd have to be the mayor of a city that's not fully developed.
Right. We'll go out to Now Then or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There we go.
Township. You could be the township chair or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. Or you could pave roads that are dirt.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, something like that.
That would be a little less intrusive.
Yeah, so I am campaigning now to be the MnDOT chair. I just want, look, I'm being serious here.
Okay.
If I were the MnDOT chair,
okay,
that would be my first executive order. Can they pass executive orders?
I don't know that's how that works.
Okay.
But,
I think I would make some other declarations, though. I mean, first off, second thing, I don't take orders from the Met Council. That would be my second thing. I don't care what their plans are. I don't give a damn what they are. Nobody gets. They don't. I take my cue from the legislature and the governor, and my third cue would be that or declaration or whatever. I make no policies here. I carry them out.
Right. As far as your point number 2 goes, if I was the head of the Met Council, you wouldn't have to worry about edicts from the Met Council.
Here's the thing. What a partnership.
We could work in tandem.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah,
wait a minute.
Okay.
What a partnership. You are the chair of the Met Council. I am the MnDOT commissioner.
I don't tell
a new
you to
era.
do
No, wait a minute. A new era. Do you want to talk about the 3 C's of continuing, cooperation, and comprehensive?
And my answer would be no.
Yes, my answer would be no also. Me too. # me too. That would be my answer. So you want a harmonious, non-intrusive MnDOT and Met Council. It's Andrew Richter, Jason Bradley for the chairs of both. Now I'm going to make an appeal to our friends running for governor. And we have friends in the legislature.
Yeah.
I mean, we can get this gig. Jay, I'm telling you.
Well, that might work out.
I mean, I always think Governor Richter has a nice ring to it. Commissioner Richter. Because I've been Commissioner Richter before.
Yeah.
When I was on the Planning Commission. If I raised my hand, Commissioner Richter is what I heard. It's not quite as great as me calling doctor or something like that, but it was close.
But is that a title that follows you? Like once a senator, always a senator? Are you once a commissioner, always a commissioner?
Well,
should I address you like that?
No, I don't think so. And I mean, even like the city code thing, which we talked about in the previous episode, I was Chair Richter.
Yeah.
So I have had titles. Okay. So commissioner, I think if I was commissioner of MnDOT, I would have that title.
Okay.
Kind of like when Fritz Mondale ran for president or ran against Norm Coleman, President Reagan and Norm Coleman referred to him as Mr. Vice President.
Right.
It was a big enough job that follows you around. MnDOT commissioner. Commissioner Richter. Now, I'm going to make it just one more appeal here, okay? You will never have a better relationship between a commissioner and the legislature, because I have watched the MnDOT commissioner squirm and dance and I can't think of his name, doesn't matter. And maybe it's the old one, I don't know. His name started with his last name started with a Z. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Zebra. I don't care. But whatever they got questioned on, whatever the legislature wanted, the commissioner always fought. Like the legislature would say, "We need more lanes on 494 and 169. What are you doing about it? What are you planning?" And the answer is always, "Well, we're going to have, we can do another, what do you call the ones where you have to pay, or the term is slipping.
Drawing a blank, yeah.
Like when you, or you have the express lane there on 394, and there's something else you can use it if you have a card or something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're going to, our long-range plan is to put a bus down 494, and it's like, well, people in Plymouth, they don't want to take the bus.
No.
Yeah, I know, but we're thinking of it. Was always no, whatever you want, I'm not going to do. That was if we could have had one sentence be that entire. It was hell to watch, and so and this happened everywhere, and so I think as commissioner. Okay, if the legislature wants capacity on roads is what we're going to plan.
Yep.
So that is my pledge to the governor candidates out there.
Wow.
Commissioner Richter for a new era of cooperation, continuing, the 3 C's. I am embracing the 3 C's, or I'm redefining them, but I am embracing those things.
Well, that's what they do all the time. They just redefine things to whatever they want it to mean. That's what it means. So that's good.
Wow. I'm already
imagine that.
I'm already, picturing my office. And actually, you know what? I'll take that back. I don't need an office. Run it out of my home.
Yep. I would do the same with the Met Council.
I don't need to be. I don't want to be down there. Going down to St. Paul, it's like a disease.
Hey, it's like that's how much more green could you be? I mean, telecommuting to work, that's saving the environment. I think that's very noble of you.
And I'm reducing congestion.
Yep.
I'm not driving to St. Paul.
That's true.
Plymouth to St. Paul's a little jaunt.
And as the future chair of the Met Council, that makes me very happy.
In fact, I'm going to take it a step further.
Yeah.
We're going to use the regional park system to have our meetings. Let's all have meetings at the regional park system. We'll have vegan lunches. I mean, come on here. Look at this. I'm getting in with the spirit here.
Yes.
I don't know. Look, what were we talking about anyway? Where were we?
We were talking about the history of the Met Council.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess we got sidetracked a little bit, but that's okay.
All right. Well,
that's where our best ideas seem to come from.
We do. We do have good ideas when we sort of just wing it.
I think what we had talked about was we were left off like talking about wastewater, and is that really a cry for, is that a valid cry to create this body that has only grown over time?
No, and if that's the case, why can't you create? And here's the thing: have we solved the wastewater problem? It's been 50 years. If we haven't, that's pretty bad.
I know that there's plenty of places that still don't have a sewer system, like out around Lake Minnetonka. Deep Haven does not.
Do they need one?
I don't think so.
Everybody dying of water poisoning over there?
It does flood quite a bit when it rains hard. I mean, I've been there and I've seen it, and it does flood a lot. Could they use something? I suppose. Does that mean the Met Council needs to do it? No.
Or taxpayers in Washington County have to pay for it, or Dakota County.
Right. I mean, why can't they just decide next time we redo the roads, let's build it with a sewer system?
Yeah. Why can't they do that?
And we'll hook on to there, or we'll,
You got a huge lake right there.
And now we don't want to dump sewer water in the lake.
No.
And I don't know. I mean, there's an argument with runoff, but it's...
But can't the lake be used as a water supply?
Yeah.
But that's not what happens out there. Because, I mean, I don't know the city's law out there, but I know a lot of cities, they will not give you a permit to do that if you're within city limits.
Right.
You have to be on city water, city whatever, or you won't get a building permit or a business permit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like, why aren't we doing both? Well, look, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Point is, if wastewater has been solved, then the premise for creating this has already been eliminated.
Right.
And if that really was a problem, I don't know, I wasn't around in 1967. Why did a metropolitan council have to be created to do it?
Because people were crying out for it, Andrew. It says it right on the Met Council website.
Oh, okay. So they don't embellish anything a little bit or anything like that.
Oh, of course not. It's government.
I love the quote from our former governor. I'm going to see if I can pull this up here.
It's a beaut of a quote. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, hold on.
Not our current governor.
No, but it's something he might say.
Oh, yeah. But this one was actually said by a Republican.
I don't know what he was, but Harold Levander. The council was created to do a job which has proved too big for any single community. So, all of our wastewater. Why don't you just here's an idea. Why don't you see the cities that did a good job with the wastewater and copy what they were doing?
Yeah.
How about that for? And by the way, sewer systems existed before 1967.
Yes.
I mean, you look at like a city in Crystal, they have been on water from the Mississippi River, which I found this out when I ran for mayor.
Yes.
That goes back to 1963. That's when they started capping the wells and getting us on the system. But there was no metropolitan council there that made it happen. It was an independent thing between a home rule charter city and the city of Minneapolis. We bought water from them. We still are.
Absolutely. And yes, you made me second guess myself. Harold Levander was, in 1971, a Republican.
What is he now? What did he become?
He stayed one, I guess.
Oh,
he defeated the incumbent Carl Rolvag, member of the Minnesota DFL.
Now, what year was that? Because I know Wendell Anderson was the governor.
He defeated him in the 1966 election. So he was governor from 67 to 71, actually.
So did he lose re-election?
I could look that up if it's important to our story.
No, just I guess it's not that important.
Okay.
I'm going to look, though, because...
he declined to seek re-election in 1970, returning to his law practice.
So he created the...
He created the Met Council and got out. Thanks, Harold Levander.
Yes, that resulted in Wendell Anderson being elected governor in 19... I know he served a while. I want to say... let's see. He got re-elected... And then I think Al Quee won after that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 1978. And Al Quee's still around. Boy, he's still kicking. 94 years young, and he's still kicking.
Wow.
Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. Now, okay. So if the Met Council just did septic tank stuff.
Yeah.
And wastewater stuff. Because there's government agencies and things like that do that all everywhere. I'm not saying that's good or bad, okay? Anything like that. I'm just saying they exist. However, what it's morphed into, or what I say, what the governors and legislators since then have let it morph into, is why things like this should never be created.
Exactly.
It's like a textbook case of I've got the flu, and 2 weeks later I've got cancer.
Right.
I mean,
Well, okay, so they started this because of the cry around wastewater, but so how did it grow? I mean, we should probably talk about that in this podcast if we're talking history of the Met Council. So there were a series of acts that got passed, right, between 67 and 74, and those increased incrementally the power of the Met Council to include many of the things that they are currently in charge of. I mean, there were some things after that as well, but that was like the huge increase during that time, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those things had to do with their ability to establish an HRA, just like a county can. Their ability to tax, create a direct property tax.
Yes.
Okay. They weren't created with that ability, but they got that ability in one of those pieces of legislation. And I think it culminated really in it didn't culminate, but 1974 is where they got control over more than just wastewater with the regional park system, which the Met Council basically, I mean, it must be one of these things. Parks must be something that they're too big for any single community to handle.
Yes.
And the regional park system,
it's a lot to plant flowers, mow the lawn, change out the garbages. Buy a new swing. That's
pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, it includes 54 parks and park reserves, 40 regional trails with 360 miles, 8 special recreational areas such as Como Park Zoo. I didn't know that was under the Met Council jurisdiction.
Wow. Como Zoo is under the Met Council. I did not know that either.
$40 million in bonds to acquire and develop parks. Now, we all know what that means. That's money taken off of the tax rolls.
Right.
So it's a double whammy to the taxpayers.
So they had to acquire land that was already on the tax rolls.
So our tax dollars was used to purchase property. And then that property has to be maintained with the park equipment. And look, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't have parks. I think that's where, we get... That's what somebody would, a big government person would come back and say. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing we don't need a Met Council to have them.
Right.
We don't need a park district to have them either. With all due respect to my friends who serve on that. I see no reason for that.
Yep.
They're just another layer of government that nobody knows a damn thing about.
Yeah.
And tell me, what is a regional park? I mean, what is the definition of that? Is that like, because you have, say, like the Three Rivers Park system, which controls something like French Park, something like Elm Creek Park. So is that a regional park?
Oh, yeah, I think it is.
Minnehaha, is that or does City Minneapolis do that?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. There are city parks and there are regional parks. I know, what's the name of it out in Egan? There's a regional park out there that's, there's a number of them that, I don't know, they tend to be a little larger than your city parks, and they usually include a lake, and they include trails,
beach,
and, that kind of stuff. And
so that can't be administered by a city or a county or something like that. We need that under Met Council jurisdiction.
I don't see what the advantage is to that at all.
No, what the advantage, I'll tell you what the advantages is to it. That land is permanently gone from private use.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. It's limiting. So much land in this country is owned by government. And I think that's the ultimate goal, to get it so that if there's only so much land we can live on, it eventually will lead to higher density and all the things that they want.
That's true. And that's part of calling for more parks and more trails and all of that.
Yeah, you limit where people can live.
Yeah.
You take a growing city and you take 25% of the land away. What eventually happens over time? You have higher density.
Absolutely.
And then that becomes their excuse for transit. And that becomes the excuse for bike paths and all that other BS.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, in 1967, they created a whole other agency around transit. The legislature created
Transit Commission,
the MTC, the Metropolitan Transit Commission, which it grew into what we now know as it didn't really. I mean, they ended up canceling it. To create Metro Transit. Explain that a little bit.
Well, what happened was that the government reorganized in 1994, so we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Right.
Prior to that, the Metro Transit Commission was not under Met Council jurisdiction.
Right.
In fact, the two butted heads sometimes as far as what to do about public transit.
Yeah.
Met Council had one idea, Transit Commission had another, but there was a lot of back and forth between the two. And I think the pro-transit people wanted, and I don't think it's a coincidence that right after that was created, the planning for the Hiawatha pretty much began right after that, because you didn't have two agencies butting heads anymore. So Metro Transit replaced the MTC, and that was put under the Met Council's jurisdiction. So Metro Transit is kind of its own entity, but they are governed by the Metropolitan Council. It is not independent anymore. So that's kind of how that happened. But the MTC was another creation of the legislature.
Wow.
At that time. So that was one of those lovely things. And I'll tell you, there's something else in 1974 that happened.
Yes.
The Section 8, which we've talked about months ago in a previous edition, the legislature actually directed the council, the Metropolitan Council, to administer the rent subsidy program for smaller suburban communities. Today, over 6,500 of them are administered by the Met Council.
Wow.
But again, those funds, the law says that the Met Council gets to direct those.
Huh.
I mean, the legislature gave them that authority in 1974.
Yeah.
So just another thing. It gets worse.
Oh, of course. How many layers are there to this onion? This is
a lot.
Fantastic.
The Metropolitan. This may be the biggest one. The Metropolitan Land Planning Act of 1976 directed the council to prepare long-range development plans for every region every 10 years, as well as system plans for transportation, water, and wastewater. The law also required all local governments to adopt their own comprehensive plans consistent with the regional plan, to share their plans with neighboring communities, to facilitate regional cooperation. So the council got the authority to not only create these plans, but to supersede local government in doing so. Translation, local government lost their ability to decide for themselves what they want to do in their community. I mean, that is the consequence of that. And that I would say is way worse now than it ever has been. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Your city is a dot on a map to the Met Council.
Yep.
Your community, your neighborhood, it means nothing to them. So that's where that comes from. You talk about Thrive 2040, and pretty soon it'll be, Cha-Cha-Cha 2050. I don't know what it'll be. But you remember the 2030 plan, which you and I had talked about years ago, replaced by Thrive 2040? Well, as soon as 2020 hits,
yep,
we're going to have a 2050 plan.
I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be swell.
You can look forward to that. I am not. I think that's a nightmare.
It is. It is a nightmare. And yeah, they keep coming up with these regional plans. I know we haven't got a ton into Thrive 2040. We have somewhat. I know I've ordered some materials. You've read through some of those directly from the Met Council. I think we'll have to do that in greater detail in one of these podcasts. But yeah, I mean, when you're looking at an organization that they're involved in housing and planning and parks and
roads, transit,
yeah, all of it.
Water, aviation,
yeah, all of it. You know, it's really hard to have a city that has its own character, that stands on its own, that is able to make its own decisions without the Met Council having some sort of say. It's impossible, I would say, for that to happen.
Now, what would happen, Jay? Let me just throw something out. What if cities just did it? You know? What if they just openly defied? I know we have the whole Lake Elmo thing from a few years ago,
right?
Where they lost. I'm not sure taking it to court was the right move, but Lake Elmo objected to a housing plan or something. They didn't want high density, and they lost a court case.
Yeah,
I think that was about 5 years ago. But I mean, what if a city just said, "No, we're not doing what you want. We are. You build a bus stop, we're going to tear it down. You tell us we're going to build something. No, we're not going to do it."
Yeah.
I mean, what happens at that point?
Well, that's a great question.
You know, we want 100 affordable units, whatever that means, in your neighborhood in the next 10 years. No.
Yeah.
Fine, put it in the comprehensive plan. We're not doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose they can control comprehensive plans, but they can't really control whether you actually follow through on it.
They can dangle grant money in your face, but you don't have to take it.
Right.
So I mean, I just wonder sort of why cities haven't I don't know, fought back is the right answer, but just if 50 cities defied the Met Council on something, you think that wakes some people up. You know what I mean? I think if we have one or two, if you have Mark Corrin out in Oak Grove,
right,
and nobody around him is, I think it gets tough.
Well, I think you have a lot of cities that are frustrated with the Met Council, and they do want to do something, and I think they feel alone. I mean, granted, you know, Renee Bowman, when she was mayor, loved them. But other than that, I mean...
She's actually said publicly that the Met Council does not interfere with local government, if you want to know how insane that person is. Just, I mean, insanity. I don't know how somebody... Forget your ideology. I don't know how somebody could serve as a mayor for 8 years and make that statement. That is borderline needing help.
Yeah, so I was not exaggerating. That wasn't being cynical. That was actually said. But most cities, I mean, whether they're led by conservatives, quote unquote, or liberals, quote unquote, a lot of them do have a problem with the Met Council. You know, and you know, you stated Lake Elmo. I know up in Oak Grove, Mark Corrin has done some good work fighting back against them. They won recently the right to
last year,
their property. Yeah, so it is something that I know East Bethel, was it East Bethel or Bethel? I think it was. I want to say East Bethel. Anyways, one of them, I know there was an issue, and they were fighting the Met Council as well when it came to wastewater system had gone in with there needed to be a water plant tied to it. It was really ugly, and so it's. They do get in and they mess with local politics and they mess with the way that your city looks and they want every city to look the same and, They
want to take the sub out of suburban.
Yeah.
They want everybody to be an urban area. You don't need this much land to live. You don't need to have a yard. You don't need to plant flowers. You don't need a car. That's the agenda being pushed. I mean, I don't know how somebody can deny that. That's the thing. We talked earlier about living in your own alternative universe and things like that. Yeah. How does anybody look at what the Met Council's pushing and not reach that conclusion?
I don't know. And they've got their hands in everything right now. And we talked about the Thrive MSP 2040 plan and how equity is a part of that. Well, they got a nice little graphic on the equity page. Equality is there's 3 people and there's apples for everybody. Everybody gets an apple if they can reach it, but not everybody can reach it because some people are tall, some people are short. With equity, these magic letters grow out of the ground that these shorter people can stand out, so everybody can reach the apple. Everybody actually gets the apple with equity.
Well, who made them the arbiters of redistributing wealth? And I mean, here's the thing: if we're not all robots here,
right?
The idea we're all going to be equal economically and all that, is so far fetched. And I think it is impossible to do. I mean, we've had communist countries where you couldn't be more unequal. Right. You had one group of people who had the power, and everybody else was just sort of there. And we continue to drift in that direction. I'm like, do you people not read history? I mean, we're going further away from being, And if you want equity, it comes down to equal opportunity. And I think maybe we have different definitions of what that means. Look. There's no way we can create a system where a bus can go by every single house. There's no way we can create a system where light rail goes down every street. There's no way we can create a system where every city has the same amount of jobs, the same amount of the exact same wage scale. I mean, it is impossible to do that. Show me any place on earth that has that.
Right. Well, and that's taking it a little far. I mean, buses and trains down every street. We can't even get somebody that lives in Blaine to a job out in Plymouth.
No, we can't. Not without taking 3 hours to get there.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't run at a certain time of day, or
I once worked in New Hope for a couple of days. Had to take a bus from Crystal. It took an hour. Yeah. Because they run east-west or north-south. You get picked up from one, dropped off, you wait 20 minutes for and look, I'm not saying that the expectation should be that it's every 2 minutes. I'm just saying there's a limit to what public transit can provide. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a point where it can go this far and it can't go any further. Go to New York and look at the subways.
Right.
They don't run down every street.
No.
You have to walk to them. You may have to walk from them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the subways are a good or a bad thing. I don't live in New York. I don't have any idea. They have an elevated train in
Chicago.
Chicago, I know. Milwaukee has one. They can take some people somewhere. And also, can I say something else too?
Okay.
Why does everything direct us downtown?
Well, I mean, here, there's a lot of people that work downtown. I mean, you look at...
But I would argue more people work suburb to suburb today than work downtown.
And that could be totally be possible. I mean, when you think about places like the Mall of America, when you think about places like
General Mills,
Target, Carlson buildings out on, there's a bunch of that.
Yeah, there's the place I'm thinking about in Wayzata. Doesn't matter. But there's Cargill. That's what I was thinking. So, I mean, there are, and a lot of businesses are probably going to escape Minneapolis because of the taxes and the minimum wage. And
I think they will.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to all happen next week. They've signed leases and things.
Yeah,
but it could happen. You know, there's strip malls and restaurants and hotels and things that people work at all over the place.
Right.
So if I live in Plymouth and I work in Edina, how am I supposed to take public transit to get there?
You don't. You don't. I know. You put your bike on the front of a bus, and when you get downtown, you bike out to Plymouth.
Well, I guess that's true. But, I mean, I guess the way suburbs were originally created, people lived in the suburb, worked in the city.
Right.
And that's, you know, my father worked in Minneapolis for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But when I grew up in Crystal, I would argue most people I know, don't work in Minneapolis or St. Paul. Some do.
Right. Yeah.
But most don't.
I have. I've also not worked in Minneapolis.
I've worked in Minneapolis too. And I haven't.
Yeah.
And I don't right now.
No.
I'm working 3 jobs. None of them are in Minneapolis. So 4 if you include Community Solutions.
And we still don't work in Minneapolis.
Ain't that the truth? So, I mean, it's... And remember, these rail things are permanent. It's not a bus route that I can change as the population moves.
Right.
You know, these things aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And we're not a place like New York with 8 million people. Even if the public transit stinks in New York, 1 million people can still take it. You know?
Yeah.
So, but, you know, Jay, let me just say this.
Okay.
We are Community Solutions here.
Yes, we are.
So we need to take a little bit of time here at the end.
Okay.
To explain what we would do. Now, we talked about you and I being the head of these agencies and I still, again, to our governor candidates, I still am available.
Absolutely.
To be on one of these. And we told Jeff Johnson that when he was on the show. And Jeff kind of laughed. Maybe he took us a little seriously.
It was a little bit there.
Okay. So we are Community Solutions. And I'm struck by something that you and I talked about when the tax bill was being debated in Washington.
Okay.
That there are a lot of people complaining about it, that, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this. Well, we've been raising taxes for 200 some odd years. It's not all going to get fixed in one bill. I believe the tax bill that was passed is step 1. And I think they should keep going. I don't think we're done. Unfortunately, I think Congress is going to go, we passed tax reform. So, I think they should go further. Campaign on it again next year and say, here's what we did. Here's what now we want to take step 2. I think the Met Council, as much as I would like to parachute in and get rid of it, shall we say?
Yes.
Is probably unlikely to happen. It needs to be dismantled.
Yeah. I mean, there are pieces of legislation that need to be rescinded.
Yes. 4,000 people work at the Met Council. So it needs to be repurposed. And, I mean...
Could we make it like a pizza joint?
Well, then we might have like 10,000 people working there. Tax subsidized pizza, kind of like a Metro Transit fare. We'll give a free pizza to who's. No, I mean, you look at the legislation, the stuff that we've mentioned, and like I've said before, this is a Democratic and Republican problem. Both parties have funded it. Both parties have increased its powers. Both parties have appointed people to it. Both parties have, yet both parties, I think you're right, kind of have their problems with it.
Right.
So what is the first step, Jay? What is the first thing that needs to be stripped from the Met Council? What is, I'm going to point
It's like a fun game.
Yeah, I mean, what if you could have the number one thing you'd like to see pulled from the Metropolitan Council, where would that begin?
Well, selfishly, I would say transportation and transit, just because it would maybe put an end to Botno, but maybe not with the way that Hennepin County is all over it. I think maybe the biggest blow would be their iron grip on comprehensive planning, because that would allow cities to be able to do their own thing.
Yes, without question. I think that's the first thing. Now, again, there can be some regional planning.
I think cities should have a plan.
Yeah, I do too.
But it should be their plan.
And it should
based
be
on their city.
And it should be a guide, not a Bible.
Yes.
But how, let me ask this. If the Met Council's gone, how do we regionally plan? Or do we?
Do we need to? I don't know if we need to. That's what we have a state legislature for.
And here's, I not only would agree with that, but let me take it a step further. 1 in 5 people in the state of Minnesota live in Hennepin County.
Yeah.
Hennepin County by itself is a regional government.
It is. Yeah.
We don't need another layer on top of Hennepin County.
Right.
We also have MnDOT. We also have the transportation committees and things like that. We don't need this on top of all those layers already. So do we need to be regional planned? And let me say something else too. I'll use 610 as a good example. Or maybe the better example would be, what did they used to call 81 and 169? Remember what
Devil's Triangle?
Devil's Triangle.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that a case where, do we really need a Met Council to fix that? They were involved, which is probably why it looks as screwy as it does.
It's crazy.
But, I mean, could not the cities of Plymouth, Brooklyn Park, Osseo, whoever, gotten together with the county and MnDOT and done their own plan for that area?
Absolutely.
I mean, how does anything get done in Wright County or Sherburne County or somewhere else, Chisago County, without a Met Council? How did anything get done before 1967?
And it seemed to. And you look at all of that. I mean, it seemed to all get done.
Now, there is this question about receiving federal money, and can we, again, can I ask a question? Why is there no pressure put on Congress to repeal those laws? I mean, we sit there and I hear the rationale, even from people on the right. Well, we have to have a regional planning. I'm like, well, why aren't you out there putting pressure on Congress to repeal that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, the big solution is let's elect the Met Council. I'm sorry, when people can't even tell me who's on the Three Rivers Park District or who their
school board members are, it's going to become another election like that. And who knows? You're going to have two candidates that just want to have a spending contest.
Right.
I mean, that's what you're going to have. I mean, look at the elected one out in Portland. They build one boondoggle after another. That's always used as some great thing.
Everybody looks to Portland. But it's like, why?
I don't know. I don't understand it. So I think an elected Met Council is a disaster.
Absolutely.
It's just...
It's no solution at all. It's not better than what we have now. We just are electing people. We have representation without any research.
And let me add something else. You tell me, okay, the Met Council's involved in parks, water, aviation, housing, transportation, and basically tries to control all of those facets in some way, shape, or form. You tell me how that's different from a Politburo over in a communist country.
Yeah, that's not.
You tell me what the difference is.
There isn't one. It's
So we fought 1967. Well, my father was fighting communism in Vietnam. Okay, it was 68. We were creating what he was fighting here in his home state.
Yeah, and I know some people are going to say, "Well, you're out of bounds. That's
Am I
overstating."
Look at the definition of a Politburo: a central committee, unelected, that controls every facet of your daily life.
Yes.
And tell me how that's different from the Met Council.
You have no argument here.
I don't know. I mean, what's going to light a fire under the arses of these people? And here's what ticks me off. Okay, I want to really let the Republicans have it here.
Okay.
I've never heard a Republican at a Tea Party meeting or in a governor debate or running for the legislature who's told me they're a huge fan of the Met Council and they love them.
Right.
Yet why is it nothing seems to get passed or done?
Because it's really not a priority.
How can it not be?
Yeah, it seems.
I think
like
it's a political winner.
I do too. It seems like a really popular idea when you talk to the hoi polloi.
Well, and I mean, how about outstate Minnesota, where all these state money, state resources are being taken from them and spent in the Twin Cities? That fair?
Nope.
So why aren't they up in arms? We have enough outstate legislators to, it's probably, how many do you think are from the 7-county metro? I mean, it's a good chunk. They could combine with Republicans and overrule any veto if they wanted.
Absolutely. You wouldn't think that unless there's some sort of payback system in outstate Minnesota, you wouldn't think that anybody in outstate Minnesota likes the Met Council.
Nobody in state Minnesota likes the Met Council either. It's like, but I mean, again, here we're community solutions. Okay, right. So I mean, I think the first step is to do what you said, repeal that 1976 law. I think step 2 has got to be to retard their ability to get federal funds.
Yes.
Somehow we have to make it so that if they have to get federal funds, they get as little as possible. As absolute little as possible.
Right.
Because we've created some of these acts that let them do this. So if you squeeze them money-wise and you squeeze their ability to tell cities what to do, you are going to at least get the Met Council back to fundamentally what it was designed to do in the first place. Then come the next steps of, do we really need this? Does Metro Transit really need a parent company? I mean, you get it. I mean, it's not going to be a fast process.
No, it's not. It's something that has to be done over time. It was instituted over time, and I don't think you can just.
You spent 50 years growing it.
Yeah, you can't rescind every piece of legislation in one fell swoop. I don't want to say I like it. I'm interested in the idea of the Met Council becoming an advisory commission over actually like instituting policy. That would take away their power. That they would still be able to help coordinate between cities, almost like an arbiter. That is something that I find interesting. I'm not saying I'm a fan of it, but it's better than what we have now.
Yeah, and I'd say one more thing I would like to do, and that is repeal their ability to have property taxes. Because that, you talk about, what's fought a war over taxing stamps?
Yeah.
And to see that they can impose a property tax.
Yeah.
Outrageous. Outrageous.
Yep.
With a capital O. Now, as MnDOT commissioner, okay, that will be edict number 4. I will call on the legislature to repeal the Met Councils, even though I have nothing to do with it. I'm just going to make a political statement that I want their ability to tax to be eliminated.
Well, with me as the chair over there, I would request $0 in property taxes, so it's all right.
Talk about a tax cut.
That might
get Minnesota out of the top 5 nationally.
Yeah.
No, maybe not.
No.
Maybe not with our income, sales, and whatever other taxes you could, gas taxes, anything else you can think of. I think we're still going to be up there pretty high. Nobody can follow New Hampshire's lead.
Well, that's true.
You'd think New Hampshire, if we use Minnesota's logic, nobody gets educated there. There's no social safety net. How do they do it without an income tax and without a sales tax?
They figure it out.
I guess so. It is possible.
It's doable. Yeah.
Hope California's listening, taking notes.
No,
they're not.
Well, soon they may be listening to us, but
right.
But not because they want ideas.
No. I don't think Moonbeam and them want any.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we gave you some things to chew on there. Are we going a little long?
Yeah, we are. But you know what? This is good information, and you guys like when we go off the beaten path anyways, admit it. Anyways, you understand now that the Met Council came from a place of just being about one thing and has grown into this monster. You understand that it has been incrementally over the years, what they're in control of, the problems that has created from city to city, and maybe some ideas on how we can scale that back, and some of the ideas that have been floated and whether they're good or not, and that we really do need to start making a stand to do something.
Well, and I think we also have to challenge people running for office, challenge people already there. You've been there for 10 years. Why haven't you done anything?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have people, I won't mention names, who've been in government for a long time talking about all of a sudden they don't like this. It's like, well, what did you do when you were there? Not much.
Exactly.
So you don't have. That's why when I run for governor, and yes, I'm going to run and I'm going to discount everything that I've taught on this show. So I will not have a record.
Yes.
It will only be this program. You listen to any episode of this program, you'll know where I stand on something. But I won't have to answer the question of, well, you've been in the legislature since 2006 or whatever, and you say that you're going to get rid of the Met Council, yet you've never introduced a bill to do it.
Yeah.
Legitimate question, isn't it?
I think so. I think everybody should ask that this go around when people are going through the process to, through the conventions to be the guy or the gal that's running at the state Senate or the state House level.
Can I make a prediction?
Yeah.
Next session, it doesn't matter who wins. Nothing will get done.
Wow.
Can I just make that prediction?
Yeah.
If the last session resulted in an 8.8% spending increase, I have no hope for what will happen. I don't care who wins the governor's race. I mean, I care.
Yeah.
But will anything change with the Met Council? I would bet the ranch no.
Things might get so they accumulate more power.
That may happen too. But,
I don't know.
Like I said before, it's a political winner, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get why people don't just embrace it and just say, you know what? We have got a monster here that no one is taming.
Yeah.
And we've created it, and we have the authority to walk it back.
We do. So what can we do? What we can do is look for people that want to scale back the power or get rid of the Met Council entirely when people are running in the convention process before, we lay the wreath on somebody and say, you are the person that is going to run and represent us. Before we do that, before they're endorsed as a candidate, we really have to ask some of these questions, and we have to get to know, have they done anything in the last 20 years while they've been there? And if not, what else can you do? If you're on social media, go find stuff about the Met Council and put it out there. And we created a hashtag #endthemet. Why don't you start using that and get that out there? Because that's going to start circulating. The more people we get using it, and people will become more aware of the power and the problem that is the Met Council. So that's something that you can do as well. You look like you have another thought.
Well, I mean, I think another thing that we've got to do is vet people when they before they start running for these things. We talked about electing mayors and city council people and county. Well, a lot of times they're the people who go on to be the legislators. So we can't just endorse the next person in line. That's why we have to have a farm team. The things we preach. We have to have a bench of candidates we can pick from so we can pick the best one.
Yeah.
But I think too often there's one person who wants to run.
Yep.
There's the next person in line. There's somebody has anointed somebody something.
Yeah.
And we just cheer for our side, and it kind of ends there.
Yeah.
And it happens way too much.
Yep.
And, I mean, if you look at state spending, this decade it has exploded like no other.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. I mean, we shut the government down over $35 billion in 2011.
Yep.
We now have a $45 billion budget. So we've grown $10 billion in 6 years. Just to give you an example of how out of control it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to matter what party's in charge.
No, it doesn't.
So, we need a new kind of people, a new era of people to come up and do this stuff.
And that means that we need people that are going to run at the local level so that they understand the power of the Met Council when the Met Council comes knocking at that city's door and tells them, here's what you're going to do. And you say, what? You're going to do that to my city? We need people that have been at that level that understand that. And so if you're interested in running for a city council, getting on an advisory commission, you hear about things that are happening in your city that just don't make sense, we need you to get a hold of us. And you can do that by emailing us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. We would love to talk with you more about that kind of stuff. We're all over social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're out there. Also, this podcast, we're available everywhere. It seems like we're on the iTunes store. We're on the Google Play Store. We're on Spotify. You can find us at podbabble.com with a lot of other great podcasts. So we're going to keep pushing through and creating these great podcasts. Please make sure that you share them just because people need to know. And we're putting this information out there because we want you to be able to do something in your community. This is for you. This is why we do it. If we wanted to just listen to ourselves talk, we'd go out for appetizers and chat for.
We do that enough.
We do that enough. So, anyways, thank you guys so much. We really can't do this without you. We would be just two guys sitting around talking. Instead, you have us out to talk at your meetings. You email us, you ask us questions, you send us info, and it's a great relationship we have with you guys, and we want to only enhance that. So thank you so much. There's nothing like the feeling of hey, we're doing some good, and that's our biggest reward is if we see that you're trying the stuff that we're telling you about, and we're starting to see wins. That feels super good to us. So we just want to thank you guys. Get a hold of us. We're here as a resource, okay? But it only goes so far because we love you, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to get to work.
take my life, caught a break between the lines. Don't let me be. If I get too caught